Imagine the devolution of this past year's health care reform debate and put it on steroids. Or this, a big oil company able to spend unlimited sums on its very own ads in support of a candidate who denies climate change. Or big banks heavily funding an advertising blitz in support of a candidate who opposes the Obama bank regulations. Or a mammoth internet company rolling out a massive ad campaign in support of a candidate who opposes added privacy protection. That is just a sliver of what might be unleashed by today's fresh new pile of a Supreme Court decision. Not in some not too distant future, but starting tomorrow morning. You will recall that just a week ago, the nation's biggest health insurance companies admitted having funded TV ads intended to kill health care reform. They did it by funneling the money through their trade group to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which then created ads saying that the reform plan was bad for small business. Of course, nothing prevented these insurance companies from advertising on this issue more directly, as they did in 1993 with those Harry and Louise ads. That has been widely credited with killing health reform back then. And we've devoted a great deal of time on this news hour to how much insurance companies already give to congressmen and senators directly through the maximum legal donation and through political action committees. So what's new with today's Supreme Court decision? Now it's no-limit poker, since a company can pay for its very own ads for the candidate of its choice. Let's call in Newsweek magazine's senior Washington correspondent, political columnist, MSNBC political analyst Howard Fineman. Good evening, Howard.
Hi, Keith.
Let's look right in front of us. What does this do to the midterms?
First, I want to say I have a confession to make. Sometimes I think you get a little turbocharged, shall we say, about an issue.
Yeah.
I think you're understating this one.
I haven't started yet. The special comments at the back.
Okay.
It's what startles me is that there is not marching in the street behind me.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm a reporter and a lawyer, and I think I know something about the First Amendment. This is one of the more, and I've read virtually all of the opinion and the concurring and the dissents. It is one of the more amazing pieces of alleged jurisprudence that I've ever read. Now, as to the 2010 elections, two things. It changes the math on the ground. In some states, unions have had a tremendous impact, and they get some mention in here too. But both in terms of organizing on the ground and what they can do, they sometimes, if you could quantify that in dollars, have outspent corporate interests in recent years. And you'll hear other corporate people say that, and there's some truth to it. That is over. That ball game is over. Okay, that's number one. Corporations can now totally outspend and out-organize. They can pay for organizers directly for campaigns, as far as I read this thing, in any state they want. That's number one. Number two, Democrats in red states, look out. Where unions are not important, where media markets are cheap. A Blanche Lincoln in Arkansas, a Ben Nelson in Nebraska, even an Evan Bayh seemingly secure in Indiana. Watch out if the power companies, the oil companies, the healthcare companies, anybody who doesn't like the way you're legislating decides to take you on, look out.
Is there even the political will among those who you did not mention to begin to confront this decision in some way, particularly given that any new law has to work within the new framework of this new terrible decision?
Well, I saw what Congressman Grayson was saying, and I talked to some people on the Hill and listened to others. They say they want to try to really go after this. Most of the people on the Hill are probably thinking, how do I make sure either that I don't get steamrollered or I get boosted by this new, high-octane infusion of money? I think it's going to have to come from another grassroots movement when the corporations overstep, as they surely will. It's going to have to come from renewed attention on the Supreme Court. The notion that John Roberts and his court were careful proceduralists who looked to original intent and, only went incrementally in the law, that's completely out the window. This is one of the most radical decisions in a long, long time, in my humble opinion. So there have to be a grassroots movement. The President of the United States could probably try to get behind it and say, we can't do it in Congress. It's probably going to help him in 2012 because surely everybody who's outraged by this is going to want to make sure that a Democrat gets to appoint new people to the Supreme Court. Yeah,
the worry is, of course, what you just mentioned, all those politicians who are now reenacting the moment when Gene Wilder and the producers explains the scam to Zero Mostel, and Mostel grabs his head and goes, I want that money. Is there something of a perfect storm argument to be made here, too, that corporations becoming more aggressive than ever in using marketing and PR to frame political issues, and so this decision coming now is just monumentally worse than if it had occurred 10 years ago or even 20 years ago?
Well, maybe. I think they might try to be a little cautious at the beginning. This opens up such vast new territory that they probably want to be a little careful as they trot out into it. Another thing that's going to happen, there are more unintended consequences in this opinion than like a bachelor weekend in Las Vegas. For example, corporate boardrooms are going to become political cockpits now. Because if you're saying that corporations or individuals that have full speech rights and can spend all they want on campaigns directly for candidates, then the decisions made by corporations in their boardrooms are going to be political acts. So it's going to get very controversial at the corporate level. That's an unintended consequence of this.
So we have two special comments tonight. The first of them just brought to you by Howard Feynman. Well done, sir. Thank you for it.
Okay, Keith.
Howard Feynman of Newsweek and MSNBC. Stay tuned.